My name is Kunset. My ID is 24C116. Today I am going to tell about types of interrupts, that is hardware versus software. So let's begin. What is an interrupt? An interrupt is a signal that temporarily halts the CPU's current execution to handle a higher priority task. Think of it as an urgent notification demanding immediate attention. Without interrupts, the CPU would be stuck in a rigid sequence, unable to respond to external events or system requests in real time. Now, we are going to tell about why do we need interrupts. So first is efficiency, multitasking, prioritization. Efficiency prevents CPU from wasting cycles pulling devices constantly. Multitasking enables multiple processes to share CPU time effectively. Prioritization handles critical events immediately, regardless of current task. What happens during an interrupt? First, CPU runs, then interrupt arrives, then it is saved as a state, then handle the interrupt, and at last restore and resume. Hardware interrupts. External signals generated by hardware devices to request CPU attention, like we can say keyboard, mouse, printer, network card. So in keyboard, as we press the keys, the interrupts are generated by detecting the key press. In mouse, if we click or move, the interrupts is generated. In printer, the job is completed, that is, the print is taken out, then interrupt is generated. Network card, data packet arrived. So key characteristics of hardware interrupts are asynchronous external source, hardware triggered. Asynchronous occur at unpredictable times. External source originates outside the CPU. Hardware triggered, physical device sends signals. Now, software interrupts. Programmatically generated interrupts triggered by software instructions that system calls. So OS is request OS services, input output file, process control. That's all. Exceptions: division by zero, invalid memory access that generates the software interrupts. Breakpoints, that is debugger stops execution. Key characteristics are synchronous, internal source, software control. Synchronous occur at predictable points. Internal source generated within the program. Software control explicit instruction causes it.
Taking over from here, let's look at the direct comparison between hardware and software interrupts. The core difference lies in the source and timing. Hardware interrupts are triggered by external devices and they happen asynchronously, meaning they occur at unpredictable times. This is driven by physical signals from hardware like your keyboards or mouse. On the other hand, software interrupts are generated internally by program instructions because they are coded internally into the software like an INT instruction or a system call. They are synchronous and they are completely predictable. Let us take a real life analogy to understand the interrupt scenario. Consider a lecture hall where a teacher is lecturing students, and there are several students. The teacher is giving lecture just as the CPU is executing its normal sequence of instruction. Suddenly, a student asks a very urgent question, and teacher has to answer that question and have to stop on whatever she is speaking. Similar way, the CPU, when an interrupt signals arise, stops its current sequence of instruction and performs first of all and performs interrupt first and then and once the interrupt signals is over, it continues teaching, it continues executing its normal instructions. This perfectly mirrors how a CPU handles an interrupt before returning to its primary task. Now let us see why interrupts matter. So why do we build systems this way? Why why do interrupts really matter? It takes us to the three main key advantages. First of all is the efficiency. Interrupts eliminates the need for the CPU to constantly check if a device needs attention, which we call busy waiting, freeing up the processor to do actual useful work. Second is the responsiveness. They allow our computers to react immediately to critical external events. Third is concurrent processing. They enable multiple hardware components to share the CPU seamlessly, making multitasking actually possible. Let us now see the main key takeaways that we can conclude at the last from this presentation. Interrupts are the backbone of the responsive and efficient computing, allowing systems to handle important events without breaking the normal flow of program. The hardware interrupts are external and asynchronous, and they are completely unpredictable and from hardware devices like keyboards or mouse, etc. Whereas there are software interrupts which are completely internal and software coded and synchronous, and they are predictable. The CPU both the cases, the CPU saves its current state to ensure a smooth resumption once the interrupt is handled. Thank you.